guys, so today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This was the Classics Clique book of the month for June, which is my Goodreads Classics book club. So if you want to read a classic with me every month, you can join that in the info bar below. And actually the poll for which book we should read in July has just gone up as well. So if you want to vote for which book we should read in July, make sure you check that out within like the next day or so. So this classic, The Picture of Dorian Gray, is actually one of my all-time favorites. I've read it so many times over the years and it's definitely a 5-star read for me. This follows a painter called Basil Hallward and his friend called Lord Henry. Basil was painting a young man called Dorian Gray, who is described as basically super good looking, like a Greek god type good looking, and Basil was quite good friends with him, and Lord Henry meets him and decides that he wants to be friends with him as well because he's a pretty good looking young man. Essentially what happens is that Lord Henry is a very bad influence. He has some kind of interesting ideas about things. There's a lot of, which is something that I love, there's a lot of kind of philosophical discussions in this book between characters. Like Lord Henry makes a lot of statements, broadly speaking, about life and what he thinks of certain things and how the, best way to live is and stuff like that. So he starts kind of putting these ideas into Dorian's head about how Dorian needs to like enjoy his beauty while it lasts, because when he ages he's not going to look this good anymore and then he's not going to be able to get whatever he wants anymore and things like that. So he kind of really instills this like fear and like desperation into Dorian that he needs to make the most of what he's got before it's gone. So Dorian Gray pretty much takes that advice. So the major things I can kind of tell you about this book without spoiling anything is that I think it's really beautiful. The settings, first of all, like Basil in particular with Lord Henry and with Dorian spends a lot of time in his garden. There's a lot of imagery around flowers and things like that in this book, which I just love. I think it's beautiful. Imagery in some books really bothers me if it's overused, but I think Oscar Wilde just does it in such a brilliant, beautiful way. Like it's just so richly written, and all his imagery and metaphors and things like that I feel like are not just your standard like her eyes were as blue as the ocean. Like there's none of that in there. It's a lot more descriptive and I think beautiful. Also kind of alongside that is the philosophical kind of discussions that the characters have between themselves about right and wrong and like how to live life and all that kind of thing. It's such a quotable book, and the writing in itself in that way, even in the dialogue, is really beautiful as well. There are quite like long blocks of dialogue sometimes, but the characters kind of, even though obviously it's a classic written in the 1800s, so people have a different way of speaking than we would speak now. They're a bit more formal, but it's at the same time the dialogue is really natural, so it's really readable, if that makes sense, and I really like it. This book though is like super dark as well. It's definitely a lot darker than I was expecting when I first read it, and I love that about it. It's very, very surprising. There's some really dark and twisted things that happen. And it all kind of comes down to this idea of corruption. Like Dorian Gray is corrupted by Lord Henry, and then other people end up corrupted as a result. It gets darker and darker as it goes on, and you pretty much watch Dorian Gray destroy his life. So in that sense I feel like it's kind of a tragedy as well. That is it for my spoiler-free review of this book. If you've read it, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to know, and if you're gonna pick it up, let me know that as well. Make sure you go vote for which classic you want us to read for Classics Clique not Creek in July, and I'll see you guys with another video in a couple of days. Bye.